day is a day for celebration, and every day is a reason to gather. So I really want to thank you, because we really don't need a reason to get together. But of course, today is 1/11. And for those of you who are familiar, well, like Sharon said, it's a day of celebration, it's a day of gathering. Why? Because every time there's a sequence of numbers, it is an indication, a signal that there is a portal opening. And a portal opening is another word, another phrase to say that we're receiving an influx of energy. A very cosmic, very spiritual, high potency energy. Numbers are nothing more than another language. I like to call it a part of light language. And when we start to pay attention to it, we start to recognize and connect with the fact that it's giving us messages. You know, for example, 111, as Sharon said, is a day of oneness, is also a sequence that tells us to stop and to pay attention, to absorb the moment. You know, it's also blessings, to know that we're surrounded by angels, or ascended ones, the masters. And then if we go on to 222, 333, and 444, they too also have a meaning. We're not going to discuss that right now because we have other things to discuss. But what I'm trying to say is pay attention to numbers, because it is a language. And again, when you start to give reverence to it, you'll start to notice, as with 1111, everybody now is 1111. Why? Because they began to create a dialogue with that light language. You get that? And because they did, hi, how are you? I didn't know you were coming.
I didn't either. I just had the opportunity.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Welcome. So the more we pay attention, the more it will not only speak to us, but it will begin to reveal things to us. You get that? Yes? And so we're here together today because it is 111, which is a gateway, but more importantly, it is the beginning of a new paradigm. And before I go any further, I know that there's some new ascended ones here. I'm going to trust that you understand or have some comprehension of what I'm talking about. If you're not following, know that your higher self is going to understand, and hopefully we'll move through whatever I have to share, and then you can ask as many questions as you feel you need to. But I want you to know that your higher self is in complete understanding of what we're going to discuss here. Yes? God bless you, really welcome. And so, why is 111 so important in this timeline? Because we are in a new timeline. And when we entered 2017, we entered literally a new timeline. It's not because it's 2017 and it's New Year's, but because for eons and eons, we've been waiting as a collective and as a soul oneness for this timeline to arrive. Does everybody understand or is following what I'm saying so far with a new timeline? Just raise your hands if you do. Yes? Now, why have we been waiting for this? Well, prior to this timeline, we were, as a collective, as a humanity, in a certain dimension. And the best way that we can describe that is to say that we were, say, in elementary school. And we've been in elementary school for a very long time. And maybe even repeating those grades over and over. That's fine, you know. Waiting to be able to finally graduate, to enter into junior high school, or high school. We maybe skipped junior high school, right? And so That's what's happening right now in this new timeline that, believe it or not, actually did begin on January 1st. And that's why I'm saying, for those that have an awareness, many people say, oh, Happy New Year, and it was a Happy New Year. But it's so much more than a Happy New Year because it's 2017. No, we entered into a new paradigm, into a new realm of reality on January 1st, 2017, because we were ready to do so, because we graduated, and through the hard work that many ascended ones, avatars, and many other entities above, we were able to bring, and the earth itself was able to bring itself to that next grade. Yes? And that's an amazing thing to celebrate, by the way. Hello, how are you? How you doing, love? How are you? Take a seat. Hi, how are you?
This is Amelia.
Hi, Emilio. Nice to meet you. How are you? Good, welcome. I'm with us.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Here you go. We have a small room because I wasn't sure. As a matter of fact, I was saying that this class was supposed to be canceled, but here it is. Thank you for coming. Yes, and we just started a few minutes ago. And so we're talking about the graduation of the earth, okay, and why today is such an important day, because today is the first wave of energy that we're receiving cosmically on a new paradigm existence. Yes? Yay! Do we really know what that means? Again, I'm going to compare it to, imagine if you were in elementary school, and up until that point you were only receiving education that merited elementary level. And suddenly you graduate, and now you go into a new school, and what? You start learning new material, right? You start to receive a higher level of education. And that's exactly what is happening from the moment that we entered into the new paradigm. It was unofficially on January 1st, and why I say that is because on a numerological level, I didn't say that right? But you all know what I meant. The one brought us into a new beginning cusp. But the truth is that the earth ascended into the fifth dimension much prior to January 1st. And that is just the dressing, if you may, right, on the salad to say now we've entered into a 1 year, a new beginning year. I'm gonna stop there because I know I just kind of said a lot. And so, are you guys following me so far? Yes? Yes. This is so important, and again, I want to celebrate everybody who's in this room. And I want to acknowledge you because if you're in this room, you have ascension. And if you're in this room, you were called to come here to be celebrated, to be honored, and to be celebrated for who you are and who you're becoming and who you will become in this new paradigm. And my obligation, why I'm standing here, is because I know, and I've been guided to tell all of you, that we need support. We need support in stepping out, because we've reached our graduation and we've done this for so many eons, struggled to get to this point, that we sort of gotten used to struggling and are not ready to step out in our glory to say we finally made it here. And one of the biggest messages I have for you today is that you have to become aware that suffering is behind you, that the struggle is behind you, and that stepping into a new paradigm means that you start on a clean slate, but with the abilities and the awareness and the knowingness that you have. And that's a great advantage. Do you get that? It's a great advantage. An old paradigm ended, and what ended with it was the imbalances. And what ended with it, hopefully, was what didn't serve you anymore. And you learned that through many lifetimes, including this one, to let go of a lot of things, right? Well, one of the greatest gifts of this new paradigm is that the earth ascended and it left behind all the debris, but it brought something with it that's very precious, which is your seeds of intention. And whatever you planted is in the new paradigm. You know what I mean? Any seeds of intentions that were to your highest good and that would align themselves with this new paradigm energy are still here. And so you have a clean slate, but all of those seeds of intentions are ready to harvest now. And so you really need to celebrate and really rejoice at the fact that we're in this new space and step out as an avatar. Yes? What do you think about that?
As an avatar? With
Yes.
16 abilities above a human?
Yes.
That's quite interesting. I don't know if people would step into those shoes that quickly.
Well,
Or understand every level of what that is.
okay, but can we step in there knowing that that's what we are? Well,
We can if we know all the abilities that we have.
And how about if we step into knowing that when we step in there, well, let's just take high school. When we enter high school, do we know that we're going to learn everything that we do?
No.
We don't. But we start somewhere, right? We start at that first grade of high school, and we have an endeavor that we're going to graduate, hopefully, We have to step into this place knowing that we're Christ-like, that we've worked that hard, and that we have the ability, in the absolute, we have this capability, which is why these chakras are listed here. And so we'll get there in a minute, and I'm going to come back to that, because I want to challenge in a beautiful way. Because avatar does sound like, wow, like, can I? But the truth is that we have to start believing that that's who we are in the absolute, and at least show up to say, well, I'm going to become that. Because one of the greatest endeavors and work yet to be done for the ascended ones is that we need to be the example. We need to be the example. And this is why this paradigm needs you so very much. Because as a collective, the world is used to what? What are they used to? What are they used to?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Suffering.
Suffering.
Fear.
We could go on and on, right?
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage, disbelief, doubt, skepticism, hatred, on and on. And we're not criticizing them. I'm saying that as a collective, this is what the little ones, which I like to lovingly call them, are used to. And whether we step into a new paradigm, whether we stay in the old paradigm, doesn't really make a difference to them. And I know that may sound conflicting, but it isn't, because even though we've stepped into a new realm, there is still free will sort of in there, And I say sort of because they still have free will, but guess what? The earth has ascended. And so there's a little bit of a battle, and I'm saying this lightly, but the earth is the earth, and the earth is going to continue to ascend, whether we join it or not, you see? And it has a protocol, and the protocol is, believe it or not, that we have entered a new timeline of rejoice, of a promise. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I wanted and needed to speak to you guys, because we need to know that this is a timeline of promise, of finally being able to reap all that we were inherently brought and born to be. And we don't know what that is. because we've never had the experience. And we have very few to be the example of that experience, yes? We have many beautiful avatars that we look up to, yes? But even they had to suffer. And so it's very hard to kind of almost believe that, wow, we're in a new space where we're not going to suffer anymore, right? What do you think?
Well, I feel like there's always going to be a little bit, but kind of overcome it. It's not like
Well, there's
not
always
like
gonna
the
be
past. There's always
challenges.
going to be something. But
There's always going to be
yeah,
a challenge.
not
we're
always going to
living-
be something, but there's always going to be here and there.
Absolutely. There's always going to be life challenges, and we're written in a perfect environment that's getting more perfect as we go along, okay, which we need to understand that as well. The earth is ascending, so it's actually perfecting itself in a higher dimensional state. It's the little ones, the inhabitants who don't have that, that same compatibility. And again, the invitation is for everyone to ascend with it. What are we all going to do it? Eventually we will. But right now is what's really important. And what's important is those that have ascension, well, you need to know that you finally have stepped into a place where everything is going to be open to you. And the suffering and the struggles that you've had to accomplish and to get to where you are really behind you. And I cannot stress this enough. You are going to be the examples. You are going to be the examples. The little ones are going to look to you and say like, wow, why are they so happy? Why are they so successful? How can they do so many, how are they so gifted? And, why are they so full of love and light? And what are they're gonna wanna know how you do this. Yes? It's one of the reasons why a lot of you are here found me, right? Because you wanted to, yes? Because you wanted to know. Because you wanted to experience this, yes?
Absolutely.
And so I am telling you that what a great gift that is for each and every one of you. To know, I hope, that by the time we're done here tonight, that your purpose has been enhanced or expanded into knowing that, I am a Christ-like avatar in the making, and I need to be the step out in all my glory with my garb and allow people to experience that. Because it is through that experience that people are going to want to know and then be inspired to learn and to follow it in your lead. Yes? So, this is why the Ascended Ones are getting this amazing gift. Because the life force knows that the humanity needs an example. And up to this point, all it's had is suffering. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you could really see how the pieces fall into place. And because we're in this new paradigm of a new promise, it's saying, what do you need? What do you need? What can I do for you?
The universe is saying that to everyone.
Absolutely. The thing is that not everybody, right, can comprehend or even believe that, right? Right. And so, by the way, absolutely, everyone, without exception, has the same gift. The thing is that many do not believe. Many are still stuck in old belief patterns. Hell, some of them don't even believe they're worthy of, right? Of asking or of becoming this, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And so how are they going to get there? Well, they have to have the willingness. But I'm telling you, they are also going to be inspired when they have examples. Which is why you guys are so very important. You get it? Because it is when they see you shining at your very best, naturally, authentically, because you have reached another state of fulfillment, of embodiment, that just your presence alone is going to talk to them. Never mind about what you say, what you teach. It's just your very essence that is going to start speaking to them. And they're going to want to know, what are you doing? How did you get there? Tell me, show me, yes? And a lot of you are very eager to do exactly that, which is to share, right? Many of you are teachers, healers, and you don't have to be, by the way. You can be a homeless person in the middle of the street and still be able to give this gift away, because if you're being this, yes, then by the very essence of you being this and emanating this, it is a gravitation that's going to magnetize people to you. I've talked about that a lot in other gatherings, yes? You're a magnet. And right now, with this new paradigm, your auric space just expanded 100-fold. Right now, they feel us in Cuba somewhere. They may not know what they're feeling. I just been Cuba. But I am so dead serious about what I'm saying right now. You better know that they're feeling us in different parts of the world right now. And they may not know what they're feeling, but they're feeling a vibrational frequency because we're gathered here holding a vibration. Yes? And when we feel a high and we don't know where it's coming from, it's probably because somebody across the world, just like us, are gathering, creating a vibrational field and holding a field, okay, for the collective oneness. And we are all one, right? So be careful what you do. You build it. It's true, yes. So I'm going to take a pause for a moment. Questions so far? Comments?
Well, I think you're correct because, there must have been some group going on because there was a time where I wasn't feeling that up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, but why am I feeling okay even though, certain things are going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I understood it was maybe the angels or something, but what you just said resonated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
Absolutely.
wonderful. That's wonderful to know.
When we put out an intention or prayer, it has a ripple effect across the whole cosmos. And so we need to be very mindful, because do we really understand what it means to be one? And again, I'm just being very general, but do we really, as a collective, understand that? The answer is no. Because we may think like, oh me, oh you and me, or maybe all of us in this room. But it far supersedes anything that we can even describe. Everything that is in existence is part of us. And so when we curse or damnation to something, we're sending a ripple effect across the galaxies, and just like we could do it with a curse, we could do it with an expression of love, of healing. And we can send out that ripple out into the universe, yes? And so trust me that when we have these gatherings like this, and I hope that you take that with you as well, when you do prayer, you don't have to be in a gathering like this, you could be in your solitude. And yet whatever you're setting out into the universe. Isn't that a great thing to know? It makes you conscious and responsible, I hope, right? And by the way, we all have moments, yes. So, I'm not saying like we have to be perfect. We're not ever going to be that here completely. But does it bring us to a place of being conscious? And does it bring us a great sense of love when you know that you're sending out an intention and it's going out into the ripples of the cosmos? Yeah, that feels good. Right? I know that for me it does, yes? And so I had an Ascension class a couple of months ago. I know that some of you were there. And I did speak about the higher chakras, but it was brought to my attention that in lieu of the fact that we are in a new paradigm and there are new faces here, and this is really what's at the cusp of this timeline right now, that I should talk about these again. We have a multitude of chakras, yes? Do we all know that? Yes? Right? And when we're developing, spiritually in the beginning, one of the first things that we're exposed to is the 7 primary chakras. And that's a great spiritual education, by the way. It is a prerequisite. We need to know about the 7 chakras. And we develop a lot of our spirituality within the 7 chakras in the body. But of course, there are so many more chakras, more than we can even mention, because there's chakras in the universe, there's chakras in the cosmos, and if we're all one, then we are part of those chakras, right? But we'll spend a lifetime talking about that. But there are 5 primary chakras that are out of the body that are very important for this timeline right now, and for the ascended ones who've reached this state, okay? These chakras are located right above your crown, upward into the cosmos, okay, to where? Well, it depends how far you can bring yourself. But for now, what you need to know, what I like to share is what these chakras are, and I'm sure that most of you are already having experiences with these chakras. The 8th chakra, again, is right above your crown, and its primary calling or vibration is your intuition and your sensories. Okay, now when I say intuition, I don't just mean having a hunch, I mean an intuitive knowingness, that usually proves itself almost immediately. Sensories of seeing, being a seer, being precognizant, being telepathic, being empathic. And all that develops within that 8th chakra, having a perception of things, almost like having a knowingness that's beyond your human understanding. Yes? How many of you have had or feel that you've started to develop that chakra? Hands. Yes? Absolutely. Okay. It is the most active chakra for many of the ascendant ones. This is why a lot of people are becoming, stepping forward, I should say, with becoming readers, because they're tapping into this intuitive compartment. Some are using it for healing abilities. They can see, they're seers. I'm a seer. I can see into the body. I can see into the organs. And so they're using it in that way. And as teachers, believe it or not, teaching others, because as they open this 8th channel, you start to begin to have a knowingness that you have absolutely no idea where it's coming from. It's like you begin to channel. And you have an awareness that it's not really you, but it's okay. You start to trust what it is that you're saying. Yes? The 9th chakra, and again, these go in sequence, going upward into the cosmos, is the Christ-like embodiment. It is where we start to actually experience and manifest miracles. And it's also the chakra from where we tap into for instant manifestation. And where we also can obtain the Akashic records. And that's sort of a little bit, that can happen here in the 8th and the 9th. But for anybody who starts to have memories, or for an individual who who can tap into Akashic records, they've already started they've developed their 8th and 9th chakra. Okay? Christ-like embodiment, what do you think I mean by that? Or what do you think is being meant by that?
Christ consciousness.
Anybody? What do you think?
I mean, like, that the divine is within us, that we are the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Healing others.
Living in truth. Living in truth.
Living in truth. I think I'm gonna say all of those are right, correct, and then some. Okay. If we just look at Christ-like, okay, well, we can refer to who was Christ. We knew that Christ knew that he was part of the God force, absolutely no doubt. Knew that he was divine, yes, had absolutely no doubt. Christ-like, have absolutely no doubt. You know, to me is the, you know, one of the greatest definitions. Yes.
I feel like it's a knowing that when things are really bad or they're just not felt the same way because there's sort of a disconnection to here because you know, like there's disconnection to this present place because you're so connected to the divine that when so Christ was you know going through all the suffering, for example, and he knew there was the pain isn't felt the same way because of that connection. I feel like
Because there's a divine connection, you're saying?
yes, like,
Absolutely.
like a knowing that it's not, this isn't it.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. And yet within that, there's still pain, believe it or not. Well, there's still pain. And ironically, the pain may be then because you recognize that not everyone is an understanding or in the same place that you're in. You know, there's a great sense of isolation. There could be a great sense of frustration in trying to, you know, bring out or inspire others to be Christ-like, you know. So again, this is very pivotal for you guys because I love what you're saying, by the way, even though we're in a time of rejoice, and even though, yes, knowing that we're divine and having that knowingness is a comfort, a great comfort, there also tends to be, can be, I know it for myself, a sense of frustration and sometimes pain for my students, for my children, because I can't take them to that next place, you know. And I have a lot of awareness that I just wish I could just inject it into many, you know. That would be so much easier. We can just inject people, right? The little ones. And so there's this sense of isolation or, you know, of sadness sometimes, you know. And yet you still, that Christ-like persona walks with grace, walks with acceptance, yes? Walks with a recognition and an honor that every soul is where it needs to be. And that your job is not to inflict yourself, you know, or force yourself on anyone. Which is why I said what I said earlier. It is through your eminence of who you're being that you're going to transform people. And you can step out and teach whatever you like. But if you try to force your way through there, then you're just going to create conflict for yourself and for the others, because that's not how we're going to do it. It's by being the embodiment of Christ. Very important. The embodiment, so that means that you walk in that energy and that you emanate in that energy, which is what I said earlier. You show up in that light. And by virtue of you being that, people, you know, are going to want to know. They're going to be gravitated and, you know, just magnetized by you. And I say this very humbly, but I have stood in front of people that I've met and I've made them cry. And they say, I don't know why I'm crying. And I say, that's perfectly okay. I know why they're crying. And that's all I need to know. You know what? That I know why they're crying. And they'll find out why they're crying later. And you know, and they may never connect the dots, but something's happened to them. Because at that moment, they were open. And at that moment, they received the exchange of this Christ-like embodiment of light that I carry, I hope, most of the time. you know? And so that's what we're talking about. Miracles, instant manifestation, well, we know that Christ did that, yes? We know that he did miracles and that he instant manifested. Can we?
Yes, you can, actually.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, yes? And the only thing that obstructs us from instant manifestation and miracles is your own disbelief. And or, if you are trying to create a miracle for another, and it is not their calling to receive that. And so we need to be very mindful when we create a miracle, when we set forth a miracle. And what I mean by that is we can collectively send out a miracle, or we can petition to say a miracle for somebody to get better. But if on a soul level it is not in their soul path to get better, then we cannot interfere with that. And so we could put to question then, like, well, can we really do miracles if we can't fix everything? Well, we're not supposed to fix everything, because it fixes itself on a very divine level, yes? That doesn't mean that you don't try, and that's where the paradox of spirituality is. It's like, wait a minute, but there's rules. There is rules. We cannot interfere with other people's will or with their soul path. But that doesn't mean that we don't feed the fields with the energy of potential for miracles. And this Akashic Records, well, I leave that with a question mark, because not everybody is supposed to tap into Akashic Records. And there's no rhyme or reason, there's no rules of inferiority. It's just that not everybody needs to tap into Akashic Records. And so if someone taps into Akashic Records, it's most likely because they're supposed to help others, to identify, or you may have a memory for yourself, but it may be just for you. It may not be for others. Get that? Questions about that before I move forward?
I'm just wondering if everybody knows what the Akashic Records are.
The Akashic Records is a galactic library that, if you may, is a very good analogy, a library that holds, without exception, every experience, every lifetime, every timeline, every experience, everything that every soul has had. Everything. And within the Akashic Records, we have a seal that holds our very individualized Akashic Records, and an activator can tap into your Akashic Records if and when you're ready, if you haven't tapped into it yourself. There's very strict protocol for that. And the reason why is to protect the soul from a traumatic experience. I'm an activator, I open seals, but I never do that without very divine calling to identify someone. Because we can traumatize somebody by telling them, oh, do you know that you were an emperor in the 1500s? Or you were a mass murderer, or whatever. I mean, I'm just being funny with it, but it's not so funny. You can traumatize somebody if they're not ready. And so that's why not everybody can tap into the library randomly. Mm-hmm.
I just have a question.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I seem to experience a dream quite often. I would say at least 4 times a week, where I get up and I'm choking and I run, and I say I'm dying, and I was told in the past by a few psychics that I was strangled in a past lifetime, and that it's kind of like seeping through cell memory, and I just can't seem to shake it, but it's very real. And the other night I was sleeping on the couch, and the dog was right next to me. My eyes are open, but I can't bring myself into the reality of things. So is that something that I'm taking from a past?
Well, what's happening is that, your soul is trying to invite you to reconcile with that. Because when we experience a trauma in a past life and our life ends because of it, it can create what's called the soul fragmentation. And if that occurs, then most likely in your next timeline, you will have a residue of it coming through. It's all intended to heal the soul so that it doesn't have the reoccurring experience. And yet, it could be traumatizing because it's fragments, I can't say it fragmented, it's fragment. And so it is trying to help you, and yet it can be very traumatizing. My advice, and and I say humbly, is I do shaman work, see a shaman, because most of the time, okay, it will be a shaman who will be able to assist someone. I'm not saying that you cannot, I will never say that someone cannot do something on their own or with divine intervention. However, I will also say that that's why the Gospels created so many attributes, within the healing arena. A shaman is able to go into those timelines, okay, and tap into the fragments of that and bring them back into this timeline and hopefully bring wholeness back to you. I wrote a book that's called Soul Retrieval that talks a lot about soul fragmentation.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
and so, yes. So the 10th chakra, okay, very important for this timeline. Again, very, 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 very important is unification, oneness, and the male-female mergence. Okay, very important at this timeline. Why? Because through different timelines and in the old paradigm, we had many levels of separation from ourselves, separation from the God force, separation from everybody else, thinking that we're an individual entity. But the most important separation was within our own feminine and masculine energies. Because, believe it or not, that was what created part of the second dimension and third dimension experience, that we were separate. And that's why one of the primary reasons why the male and female were created, so that they would find each other through the experience and growth and expansion, and remind themselves that there was an aspect within each of us that was a reflection. In other words, oh, you're a man, but there's something familiar. I have a male aspect. Oh, and you look at me, but it's because you have a feminine aspect. So relationships play a much bigger part in the unification of the soul that we know. And that is very vital right now, because we know that as a collective, what do we suffer from? Separation. A lot of separation, right? You're you, I'm me, maybe we're a little together and we kind of share something, but do we really believe that we're all one? Do we really? Probably not, right? Not at the level that we can, okay? By the way, I always say this, and I get a lot of heat from it, but this is going to manifest greatly in complementary relationships. I get a lot of heat for that. I said that in one of my videos this week, because a lot of ascendant ones, and again, there's no right or wrong, I am just sharing. I am not standing here and saying that I'm the authority, but a lot of ascendant ones feel that in order to express and to showcase our wholeness, that we should not need anything. And while that may be true, that we shouldn't need anything, relationships of every level, especially the partner relationships, help us greatly to merge and to come together within our own female-male energies, and then to be the example of that. You get it? So many complementary energies are going to start merging, especially those that can vibrate on that level, again, to be the example, to begin to help unify people. Yes? And so relationships is a very big part of that. The 11th chakra, multidimensional, soul shifting. Wow, this one's a big one. Transporting. Like, what do these words mean? Soul shifting, transporting. I know that the Ascension class I did last, it sounded like Star Trek, right? A little bit, right? What do you think? It does sound a little sci-fi, right? Who's had any of these experiences? Anybody here? Miriam? Susan, have you?
With soul shifting or any of those, well, I think we're all multidimensional now
Absolutely.
because of the movement, the growth. Soul shifting, probably many have experienced it and don't know it.
Absolutely. Yes. Transport. A lot of healers do this, by the way. And we basically do this in our sleeping state. We just don't know it. We don't have an awareness of it. What do I mean? Well, multiple realms. When we go to sleep, do we stay in that body?
Nope.
Never. Never. What are the primary reasons why we sleep? And of course, on a physiological level, the body needs to restore itself. We know that. The organs need to replenish. But do you think that that's the only thing that needs to replenish? The soul kicks right out as soon as we hit that delta state because it needs to replenish as well. Yes? And so I have this experience at least a dozen times a night, but I'm going to ask, do you ever have that feeling that you're almost like entering the body and you go like in the middle of the night? I do this at least a dozen times. And people tell me I suffer from apnea. It is not apnea.
That's what they call it in common death.
I'm sorry?
That's what they call that in common death.
In common death.
Common day
Oh, yes.
terminology.
Yes.
Even the guy that was driving the train.
Yes.
I was like, nobody has sleep apnea.
Well, again, I would agree with you, and yet, from a physiological, if we look at the allopathic, of course, the biology of the body, there's evidence that certain things happen, right? That may cause someone to stop breathing at night, and yet, the soul leaves the body.
If they have
Every
spiritual
time.
awareness, they would understand.
Absolutely.
But they
Absolutely.
don't get it.
They don't. Yes.
So are there times when you're like in a deep sleep, because I experience this at times, where the astral traveling, I guess you call it?
Right.
Like my soul, my physical body doesn't want to, like, I want to stay out. I don't want to come back into the physical body.
Yeah.
I want to stay out there.
I'm sure, which is probably why you're zoomed back into the body, thrown back into the body, which is why I had that experience. I mean, I tell you, I thrash. I've hit people, I've scared, I've woken up entire households because I love to leave my body and I leave it very fluidly because I know how to do it. And so I'm kicked back into my body dozens of times throughout the night. And yes, it could be, it's not a pleasant experience. But the point I'm trying to make is that we transport out of the body on a subconscious level already. Imagine if you can transport out of the body consciously, And by the way, we do that as well. We do that through meditation. We lift out of the body. We do it through TM, if anybody practices it, right? We do it when we take a restful cat nap, We do it when we make love, believe it or not. There are times when we transcend out of the body and start going into another space. We do it when we do healings, as healers. How do we do healings? We enter space, right? Well, hopefully most of us do. And, we start to transcend and become that vehicle, but we're actually what? Leaving our bodies. We're stepping to the side so that the goblins could come through, right? Where we're going? Somewhere, right? So we practice a lot of transporting, but this is different. This level, okay, is when somebody says to you from across the country, I really need a healing. I am in a desperate state right now. And you say to them, close your eyes, I'm gonna be there in a few minutes. And you show up. Yes? Can it happen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many of my beautiful cellos have said to me, Blanca, I needed you, and I close. Well, Sharon. Sharon, how many times have we, yes? You know, she's needed whatever, and I've called her, I've texted her, and she'll say, oh my God, I was just
Calling to you.
I was just calling you. I've had students tell me, you know, they don't feel well, and I show up next to them. So again, and I'm sharing that boldly but humbly and saying, yes, we can do this, you know, and we need to be able to start talking about this. Like if we were talking about putting butter on our bread, you know what I mean? We should allow ourselves to become so comfortable that we don't go, oh my God, did she just say? And I know that it's new, but that's part of this message today is we shouldn't be so surprised, because Christ wouldn't be surprised about transporting himself somewhere, right? We knew he could, yes, and still does. And so if we are Christ-like, and you know, we are all this, then it shouldn't surprise us that we have these abilities. We are just not used to developing them. And there's a part of us, believe it or not, that as much as we say we're ascended, are we really embracing that? Are we really stepping into that and saying, yes, I am able by the God's will in this body to do this? And again, not to say, oh, look what I could do, but because you are divine, and someone else, and so is everyone else, and this is where we're moving to. Yes? Yes.
So, yeah, I'm trying to take that in, because in my mindset, I know that saints and Christ had that ability to be in more than one, in more than one place at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So now to think of me in that position is something I have to wrap my head around. Yes.
And I love that because, again, we're here, and you know what? We're still learning. For as long as we're here, we're still going to be learning and expanding. But we need to have these gatherings because we need to reinforce ourselves into knowing that this is what we're becoming. And at your soul core, you're sitting in this room, is what you desire, is why you came here, is to be this avatar in the making so that we as a collective can step out and help the rest of humanity, inspire them to become this, and we can move yet to the next level. Yes, higher and higher into our divine ascension. And so somebody needs to start stepping into these places. And we have so many examples, you know, and we glorify them, and we rightfully so. You know, Christ and the Buddha, yes, and Gandhi, and, you know, Wayne Dyer. But we need to know that their purpose was not so that we can just glorify them, so that we could follow in the footsteps, which many of us have started to and have. And so, and as we step into those roles, then others will then be inspired like we were, you see? And so, and this continues. But more than ever, we need that now. Because we are in a new timeline, and here's the kicker, and this is very important as well, very important. The new earth and the new paradigm has a set of protocols. And the biggest protocol that it has, I'll be back to that quote, is rejoice, promise, and anew. Okay, the earth didn't go through all that it did, through all the timelines and through all the eons that it did, okay, to finally get here and then not have the inhabitants follow these new principles that are literally the pillars of the new paradigm. And so, in order to really partake in the energies, we have to follow these rules. We have to follow the protocol. That we have to be in a place of rejoice, of promise, in other words, of living the promise, and being anew. And so, the earth didn't get here to then regress back because we're not following these rules. So what happens then? So what happens then? Actually, what happens now, because we're here already. So what do you think? What happens?
Heaven on earth.
We embody that. That's what happens.
We embody it, and we follow the rules, which is that we have to step in to a place of rejoice. You see what I'm saying? There is no choice. And the choice of not stepping into this place is very important. And again, I never come from a place of fear, but if we choose not to enter into a place of rejoice, promise, and renewal, then anything other than that will not be supported. It will not be supported by the earth, by the celeste. It just won't be. So it's almost like trying to step into something that's not there. You don't want to do that. Yes? Did you get that? And that's what the little residue of fragmentation that is still sort of little particles still here. And by the way, those little particles hold a lot of little ones. So we have got a lot of work. Yes? Because I want you to hear what I said again. Those little fragmentations that still exist hold a lot of little ones that have still not stepped into this space, because they don't believe in rejoice. They want to experience it, but their experience is still very much old paradigm. Promise, what promise? What new? And we're not. They have a lot of experiences to say like, yeah, I feel this way. But we've graduated, and they need an example to show them that there is something new, and there's a new experiences to be experienced from this new paradigm ascension. And that is what ascension really is. Well, there's many meanings, but this is it, yes? Are we getting that? Are we getting this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? Very big, and so the ascension work continues, even though we're being celebrated, and we've done an amazing job as the ascended ones who had to carry a lot of, the karma, the burden, the struggle, the everything, many things, through many timelines. And so, we wish that we could just kind of retire somewhere, right? And we could. But the truth is that we don't want to. And we shouldn't want to, because now that we finally have this platform, the message today is step into it. You will not struggle anymore. And you have to believe that. It's the promise. Because we created this new space. And so now you have to really step out. Don't get exhausted. And we are all exhausted. Right? Yes?
Well, because the light workers are overworked.
Overworked, and those who have awareness that they've had past lives are exhausted. I've had 10,000 lives. I'm exhausted. Yes? I am. And many times I just want to go home. But there's work to be done, And the work is beautiful, so we can't get tired. I just want to go quickly back to this last one. And the 12th chakra is about communication, transportation beyond the 12th dimension. I mean, and when we said avatar, well, what are we talking about here? This, when you get here, you know, you're basically out of your body. You know, but is this possible? Can we do this? Absolutely. You know, are there 12 dimensions of, you know, and beyond? Yes. Are there other entities, celestial beings that communicate with us? Absolutely. You know, why do they do that? To help us, to guide us, to teach us, to navigate us. Do they speak to everyone? No. Can they speak to everyone? One day, when we allow it, when we're ready. But if we develop ourselves, we can start tapping into that, you know. And so it's part of your highest spiritual body. And so if you ever have an experience, because by the way, what can happen is sometimes we start to develop these chakras, and without realizing it, we go from 8 to 12 for a moment, you know, and we say, oh my God, what was that? You know, and we'll have an experience just like we did in the beginning when we were developing the 7 chakras and we saw a light and we would say, oh, I saw a light or I saw an angel, like, you know, and then it doesn't happen again for a very long time at all, right? The same thing applies here. As we start to develop these, we start to tap, and you know, they should go in graduation, but we could go from here to here. And you can say to me, oh my God, Blanca, I had a Syrian come and visit me, you know, or I went to the primordial space for a split of a moment and say, oh, how do I get back there? You may not be able to, and that's okay, but you could certainly tap into it. I remember when I was developing 20 years ago, I went to the primordial space, and it was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. I was meditating, and again, I wanted to drift out of my body as far as I could. I would meditate for hours. And I was in this space, just completely out of my body, and an energy, which I'm going to say was the God force, said to me, don't take another breath. And I remember just saying, almost feeling defiant, like, what? If you take another breath, you will step into a space where you will not be able to return. And I knew at that moment that I was right at that primordial space, you know, and I wanted to take that next breath, you know. I was like, you know, but I didn't. Obviously, I'm still standing here, but it was this close, and you know, and I got reprimanded for that because I drifted to some place where I didn't belong. Yet, and that was 20 years ago. And so I know from experience that we could go into these places, you know. Trust me that if we don't belong there, they'll snap us out. But can we get there? Well, absolutely. That's why they're available. If we couldn't, then there wouldn't be a way in. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a door opening. So many of the insights that I received have been from dimensions above, you know, 12th dimension and above, from entities that have come to teach and show me many things that then I in turn have written about or shared with you, even this, you know. And so I am going to open it up for question comments. This is very important. You guys have something to say, I'm sure. Yes? What do you think of this?
I think it's fantastic.
Yes?
And I think all souls that incarnated now know that that is their role.
Mm-hmm.
They know that the goal of the role of the soul.
Mm-hmm. You think you're saying that they have
Everyone
an
knows.
awareness?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you know how many souls are trying to get on the planet to experience that?
To experience this.
Millions.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the ones that are here, some are not awake, some
Right.
are suffering, some just are in oblivion.
Right. And it's very interesting what she's pointing out, because there's many souls from other dimensions that want to be here right now because of this incredible timeline that we're in. And how grace are we that we are the ones who have the opportunity. And why other souls want to come in is because they want to jump in this incredible opportunity. You know, the suffering is behind us, so now it's glory and manifestation and miracles and all that. So yes,
Many galaxies are watching to see what we do.
absolutely, absolutely. What are we going to do? Yes, so we're gonna do good. Yes. And so, what do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, just think about Earth itself. I mean, it's just a planet, you know, floating in the air. And we have so many other planets around there. I mean,
Yes.
do you believe there's other life beyond this planet?
Absolutely.
Some.
Absolutely. Yes. This is but a dot.
But that,
This is but a dot in a matrix. You know, think of the Verizon, you know, the commercial where it shows all the, you know, connections going in a huge atlas map. That doesn't even encompass what is out there. For us to be so arrogant to think that we would be the only creation is nothing but arrogance.
but you think we can't find out because we have all this technology.
We
keep
will
looking.
find out. And the thing is that we don't need to find out with a telescope.
Yeah, right.
We need to find out this way.
To ourselves, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And you
because-
mentioned, right, you have,
No.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to just point out that the
Yes.
fact is that they're not on the third level, the third dimension. These people have gone on to
Yeah,
other
higher
dimensions. That's the
dimensions.
reason why we don't see them, we don't meet
Right.
them.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more advanced than we
In
are.
other words, yes. And this is why, you know, for them to show up for us to see, we would have to raise our vibration. That's why I'm saying that not everybody will tap into this. Not because some people are not worthy. It's just because we haven't brought ourselves to the spiritual elevation.
Now, how
I'm a
about-
medium. I do medium work.
Right.
And in order for me to open up a bridge to do medium work, I have to raise my vibration.
You do.
Okay, because they can only come so far vibrationally to meet, okay? And so I have to be, or a medium has to be able to raise their vibration to meet them halfway.
So you have the power to do that. So
Yes.
how would I go about like enhancing my, meditation to go to a higher level?
That's a great question. Willingness is the greatest protocol. Your willingness to want to reach these higher spaces. Making sure to the best of your ability that you're a clear vessel is definitely the second protocol. What do I mean by that? Blockages, emotional blockages, resentment, anger, indifference, all of these physical emotions are nothing more than blockages that prevent us from reaching our highest state of divinity.
So I have to get rid of all that.
Well, because.
You have to reconcile
Well,
with it.
reconcile, right.
You need to, make peace with it. Because that's what keeps us in a low vibrational state.
Yeah, they're all low.
It's almost
frequency.
like saying, have you ever heard that we only use 5% of our brains or, right? It's almost to say that when we start to remove certain things, we start tapping into 10%, 20%
Gotcha.
of our brain,
That's right, yeah.
And it's always there, but we need to do certain things to get, to get to that place. Everyone has the ability. We're special and we're not, because we're all one. I'm very careful to say, but what makes us unique in this room and across the world, there's countless of others, is that we've had the willingness and we've invested, right? A yearning, time, and effort into bringing ourselves to a different, high state. Yes? You didn't wake up one day and just say, "Oh, I'm spiritual." But you had a yearning, you started to meditate, you did some spiritual work, hopefully, right? You worked with a teacher, you released a lot of things, you learned a lot of things, you practiced, and all of these tools then brought you slowly but surely to a higher place. Yes? That's usually how it happens, yes.
I have two questions.
Yes.
One, you might have answered before I came in, but what else happened, like energy-wise or cosmically, that brought the Earth into the ascension that you were talking about, besides the new the new year, which I know in numerology is a new beginning, but
Right.
what, did anything else happen?
Oh, wow, yeah. Many things happened. The Earth had a trajectory, if you may, from the day it was conceived. You know, there was a plan. And the plan was that this beautiful planet was going to reach these high states of awakening, of awareness. And one of the reasons why it became such a huge project and an endeavor that every other galaxy and existence looked at was because this humanity was created with free will. And so as this earth was created to go into these higher places, it had to interact and merge with the energies that humanity was creating. Do you follow that so far? So even though the earth had an endeavor, it was being impacted, okay, by the energies of its inhabitants, which is all of us. And so if we didn't exist in the earth would have ascended a long time ago by itself. But no, that wasn't the plan. The plan was, let's merge. Where is that? This mergence I'm talking, this complementary energy. Let's unify this molecule with this planet and see if free will and this earth, Mother Earth, can come together and reach this endeavor of expanding together. And there's been many eons where the earth has been trying to ascend, to elevate itself, and many eons where it hasn't been able to because of the weight of its inhabitants. And I hate to say it like that, but it's true. If the earth was by itself, it could have done this a long time ago. But there was no mistake in that. That was part of the plan. So it's not like we should feel bad, as a humanity that the earth couldn't ascend. But I don't know if I'm answering your question.
So does the human consciousness affect the ascension of the earth, or does the ascension of the earth affect?
Both. It is emergence. They became a unified field. When Earth was created, Earth was created before, the human molecule was. But the plan was, what would happen if we merge these together and we get, this is why it was such an amazing project. Why, again, as Susan says, the whole galaxy is looking at us. Because this was an experiment that was very hard to achieve. Why? Because, again, it wasn't so much that the earth would ascend, it could do that all by itself. But just to make it more interesting, they threw in us, the human molecule. And not only did they throw us in there, but then they gave us free will to create and to will many things into place, right? And so just imagine, we're willing things into place, probably going this way, this way, right? When the earth is trying to go this way, And now imagine an anchor, because that's really what was happening for these millennia. The earth is trying to ascend, and yet because it was anchored to humanity, and humanity is going every other way, and some are trying to go up, but for the most part, going this way or going this way, this ascension became almost impossible.
So they brought a lot of old souls.
Exactly, I was going to go there. And so I've spoken about
do
this,
that.
right, in many of the ascension classes before. Somewhere down, I don't know how far ago, in Egypt, and it's a very long story, but there was a conglomerate of very ascended avatars who came together and said, we've got to put a team together and put them as a security, if you may, as a protection in case humanity cannot do this. And that's all they were, was a protection. It was plan B. And if by a certain point, believe it or not, which was not too far, it was 1986, 82, somewhere around there, where the first protection was taken away. If they cannot do it by a certain time, then we're going to start activating what we call Shambhala, or the 144,000. I'm sure you've heard that number, yes? The 100, no, okay. Well, this 144,000 were ascended ones who were from all parts of the galaxy, from all part of the world, who would be sort of scattered in this earth, and at the time, if needed, would begin to be activated to have these memories so that they can actually be the holders of the ascension. And in truth, that's what really happened. And I mean, yes, I keep looking at you because I know that you, yes, support me in this. It was the ascended ones who really brought this ascension into place, you know.
So it's just kind of like what, you talk about Egypt, is that like the high priest in Egypt, like Thoth and
absolutely,
stuff like
Thoth,
that,
absolutely.
emerald tablets and everything?
Absolutely. Thoth was a major player. He was what we call a director of this, a Shambhala, and him and Sanat Khmer and many other players played a part in what we call Shambhala. And many of you probably sitting in this room right now, and I'm sure there is, and many who gather just like we do across the world, because there's ascendant ones, we know it, thousands out there, right? Hundreds of thousands, who were part of that original conglomerate. And it was because of that plan B, believe it or not, that the earth was really able to ascend, which is why we're sitting in this room, again. Because we signed up to say if the little ones, if they didn't get it, Plan B would be implemented and we would then ascend, you know, through our energy. But we haven't finished. So we got the earth to ascend, yay. But now we need to be the example. And the little ones may not be able to get to that place. So once again, we're being called to step forward and say, I will. I will. You know, and you will, and you will, and you will. Yes? Yes? And so it's all very beautiful. I hope that some of this, or most of this makes sense, but my big yes.
So do you feel that like the powers that be, like the the big time powers of the earth, the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, the people who basically run the world, do you feel that they're just the little ones that you speak of, or do you feel like they know this, but they're trying to hold back from it happening? Because I mean, with all the ancient Mayan prophecies, the eagle and the condor, all the sacred geometry, like the proof is there. So do you think they know that and they're just trying to hold down, or do you think they just have no clue and they're just going to be the last ones to rise up, kind of?
I'm going to share my divine knowingness or my truth in it. Again, I'm radical. It doesn't have to be your truth, but you're asking me. So I believe that there were many groups that may have known, that may have played a part or were trying to play a part in stopping this, say. But there was no way to stop. There was no way they were going to stop the ascension. No one, no group, no entity, was going to stop the ascension. And so, and there may still be, groups out there who may, try to shun us or politically or any other way try to move, deter the ascension process. But there's just no way that this is going to happen. And again, why? Because it happened. This happened. It's already here. And so again, my biggest message to you is to rejoice in the fact that we succeeded. Now we're succeeding. We succeeded in anchoring the new paradigm. And so now there's no stopping us. Actually, just the reverse. We're going to leap, if you're willing to, in leaps and bounds, because the promise is that we're here to rejoice, that we're here to reap the benefits of the knowingness that we got here. You know, this is not a question mark anymore. We know. We know. And so, what happens when you know something, right? You step into it, right? You know, if you're not sure of something, you may be a little hesitant, you may wait, you know, pause. But when you know something, you're gonna run into action because you know. And so this is a time of rapid action. Every seed that you planted, I want you to listen to me. Every seed that you planted prior to this paradigm being in place, to this new space that we find ourselves in, was brought over into the new paradigm. Okay? So right now, believe it or not, there is nothing really for you to do. Listen to me for a minute, because I just said a whole bunch of things that we need to do. But right now, what you need to do is to assimilate this knowingness. Step into that place and just really assimilate, oh my God, we're here. We did it. And arm yourself with that knowingness, because once you do, everything else is going to flawlessly unfold. You get it? But you need to know this. And that's why I'm here. I'm telling you, yes? Because if we don't trust in that, then we may interfere with the reap of all that we have coming to us. You know, no struggle. What do you need? What do you need to become that vessel that we need for humanity? What do you need? And that's, you know, and I know that that's a hard thing for us to see, you know, because we haven't experienced that. But we have to know that we're in a new space. And all you need to do is step in here and then challenge it. You know, things are going to start to really manifest. And you're going to say like, holy shit, we're really there. You know. The only other thing I have to say add to this is please don't engage. You know, and what I mean by that is you know what you've left behind. And you know what may still be lingering that may not be in alignment with all of this. Don't engage. Stay focused on what you need to, what you want to do, what you know you came here to do. And let that be your front, your back, your sides. Let that be your everything. Because when you engage, you're stepping out of that paradigm into those fragmented places that have absolutely no support. Remember what I said? Those little fragments are not being supported anymore. So don't step into those places. Don't engage. Yeah? And the final thing I have to say with the knowingness, any of you watched the movie The Knowing with Michael Cage?
Nick,
Oh, no.
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. Got anybody watch that movie?
Yeah.
It is a must-watch movie. It's what, like 5 years old?
Kids?
Yeah.
With the little kids.
The knowing.
It's about 5 years old or so. It's called The Knowing.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy and badass movie.
Angels come at the end or something? Is that one?
Thanks, I wasn't gonna watch it right
No, it's I'll give you pieces, but you'll have to watch it. It's a movie with Nicolas Cage. He has a little boy, and he sings in the beginning where like he may have autism or something, because he sees all these numbers, and you know, they highlight it in school or whatever, and you know, really what it is that he's being given a pattern of a timeline. And Anyway, Nicholas starts getting involved, and a lot of things happen. And before you know it, he realizes that his son is tapping into a timeline, and that these series of numbers are precognizant. In other words, they're predicting events, and numerous events happen that the numbers, validated that this was going to happen, that was going to happen, this was going to happen. Anyway, many things happened, and I'm going to kind of spoil it because I have to, but
No.
you've got to watch it.
No,
You've got to watch it. But the final message that was coming through was that the world was going to end. And the world does end. And at the end, there's just 2 little children left and a beautiful tree of life. And that's what this feels like. I'm sorry you have to see it anyway. But I had to use that because that's what this feels like to me. It's like that ending and beginning, where those 2 little children were left. But that tree of life was full of abundance. You could see it in the end of the movie. In other words, they were going to be provided with everything. It didn't matter that it was just the 2 of them, It was going to start anew, and that's what this feels like. We are going to be provided with everything that we need. It is just some of us, it's some of us who can step there now, but we have to step in there now so that others can follow? And so, watch the movie, please. You're going to have questions. You know where to find me, yes? Thank you very much for coming. I have no idea what time it is. Probably very late. Oh, it's 8:27. Okay, so I tortured you enough. Any questions that anybody has before we call it a night? I need some water, really bad.
I have one
Questions,
question.
comments?
I have one question actually about the Akashic records. How you were saying,
It's hot in here, right?
Yeah, it is
Very
hot.
Yeah.
A lot of
No, it was
energy.
just
No, I'm gonna be, it's a lot of energy, that's why.
All them should feel it.
Okay.
in terms of when you said, for doing how you do Akashic records, how you read people's past and everything, and to not just do it without the divine, but in terms of what I do with hypnosis, if somebody comes to me for a past life regression, just for entertainment purposes, say, are they being called to do it at that time, or are they? Because how you say you could uncover something that could kind of mess them up. And I've done. I mean, I haven't really done many, but I've done where I was doing age regression to work on a specific thing, and we went into a past life, and that's where their stuff came from.
Okay.
But in terms of just doing a regular, for years ago when I was nowhere near this, I went for a past life regression just out of curiosity. So for those people, if something comes up and they see it, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Are they called by the divine to find that out at that time because they're supposed to?
There's, as I said, many paradoxes in the spiritual realm, because if something happens, we say, well, it has to be divinely orchestrated, because if it occurs, then it has to be divinely orchestrated. Remember, though, that there's one little twitch in there, which is free will. Was it divinely? Well, we have free will as well. You got it? So I have to say that first, because in the absolute, well, if they had the experience, then in the absolute, we have to say, well, it must have been divinely orchestrated. However, free will, they place themselves in a situation, they may not have been ready. And so the end result may be that they may have to deal with a lot of karma, or not karma, unresolved emotions, trauma.
Sure.
That, that under other circumstances may have been dealt in a different way. I'm very mindful. I don't do life regressions unless I've had a couple of sessions. And I've been asked, I've been offered, I will not do a regression on somebody I do not know or have spent time with, only because, again, we don't know what's at the other side of that veil. And so we want to make sure that at the very least, we know the person and they trust us in case we have to exit that place. Yeah. Which I've had. I've done hundreds of regressions, and twice I've had to come back from that space, because it was not going to be conducive to them. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. Be mindful.
Yeah, no,
you know.
well, actually, I really haven't I've only done like 2 or 3, and I put it out there that I do it, but now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there's a reason why people don't come to me for it. Maybe I'm not supposed to do it, or, I mean, I do the age regression every client, you know, that we go to the root, and it's always in this lifetime.
Right.
There was like once or twice that we popped back into a past life, but.
There's a protocol that we should follow when we do, of course, it is what we call underground work, so it's shaman work. We should call our guides, we should really call out their guides. We never walk into those spaces unattended to, you follow?
Mm-hmm.
And we always walk in with the guards that if we need to step out of that place, that we will be guided to. And we create umbilical cords, and it's a lot of work, you know, because again, we are literally stepping into a realm, you know, where we have no idea, you know, what's happened to an individual. And we don't know, we won't know until we step in there, you know, so.
Do you believe this dark night of the soul, like this idea I've heard before, someone's gets to this awakened state, they sort of go through an experience of a dark period, and then they awaken to, you know, light. So I've been reading a lot about that.
I think that we all go through many dark periods of time, awakenings, initiations that can be called dark nights of the soul.
Right.
Absolutely. And when we're on a spiritual path towards awakening,
Or that compromise.
we're gonna go through a lot of initiations, which mean that, yeah, we're gonna have, you know, these moments where we feel as if the foundation, our spiritual foundation, is actually literally being taken off of, you know, like literally being torn from us.
Right.
And I like to call it initiations because that's basically what it's like. We know the Christ had to walk through an initiation, you know, 40 days where he was tortured, challenged, you know, persecuted, this, that, the other thing. And we turn to him as the example because we know that he was one of them. But, you know, Gandhi was, also incarcerated, dark nights, dark years, you know. And so, yes, I think that one of the healthiest things that we could do when we start to recognize or feel that we're going through a darkness soul is to reach out to a guide, a guru, a teacher, a healer that can help us come back to us, you know, help us come back. But it's growing pains, like labor pains, so we may need to experience it.
When I got very sick right before the end of the year. Actually, on New Year's was like the culmination of us, and we had a fever. And building up to that point in time, I was not myself. And then, like, even a few days after that, I was like, and I'm very, you know, people like, how do you not, like, I don't get into arguments with people, like, I'm just very centered and kind of happy-go-lucky. But I was, like, experiencing this, like, like it was unlike me, like my thoughts. I never actually had I had dark thoughts. I never had such dark thoughts, like ever. And it was then, you know, the new year came, and then like literally a few days later, you know, my fever lit up, and it's just, I was like, it was very weird.
Well, you know, we were going through and we will, but we went through a massive purification to get into this place. Like I said, they're not going to let us go in there with a lot of debris. Well, they won't. We will not be allowed. And so a lot of us may have experienced a lot of release and a lot of disengagement, a lot of disentwinement over the last couple of months, because this was all preparing you to enter into this realm. So please see the grace in that. You see, if you have experienced hardship or, you know, a lot of, you know, release and separation from many things, people, places, and things, please know that there was a reason for it. And the reason is because you were getting entry into this new paradigm, and it was releasing you from what no longer served you, even if it was blockages.
I had
That
this
could have
little-
been from past lives. That could have been hidden from your childhood.
Yes,
You know.
everything was coming
Right.
up all at once. I was
Yeah.
getting like flash. I was like, it was
Right.
really horrible.
Right.
And I was even paranoid. I don't get paranoid. Like that's not a feeling.
Oh, you should
I
have
was-
called me.
It was like I should have.
And by the
But
way,
I came up and I was just, cause I was like, it's coming. Like this little part of me was still like, it's coming. You'll be fine. And then I, like I said, I was.
I don't say this often, and for those of you who know me for years, I don't usually say like, look, come in for healing, I don't. Because I feel that when you're called to something, you're gonna reach out. But I do believe, especially now, and I've had the honor of being served by Susan, of her taking care of me. So let's never get to a place of arrogance where we feel that we don't need to be, to receive a calibration and a blessing from someone. Because, believe it or not, when we start going through these initiations, is when we need someone to help anchor us and balance us the most, I remember going through one of my initiations where I was in desperate need of help. I had to call a shaman who had to come and help me get balanced. And it was so severe that I was burning people. You were around for that, right? I'm sure I spoke about that during that. I had to stop working with people. And he literally said to me, for a period of time, you have to step into the next room to give people healings. And through a wall. And I was like, what? And he says, you cannot touch people. Because people on my table were literally telling me, Blanca, you're burning me, like literally burning them. And I remember being so upset and saying, like, why is this happening? Like, I'm gonna have to stop my practice. It was not funny. But thanks to him and to his guidance, he said to me, you're going through an initiation, your Kundalini fire, until you go through that initiation, you cannot work with people. And for almost a month, I had to go into the other room, and you want to talk about transport. I had a lot of students then who would come in regularly, and they would say, I said, I'm going to slip into the next room. And they were like, well, how are we going to feel you? And I said, just lie down. And sure enough, they did it, just like if I was there, But I was in the other room doing my hand healings from the other room because I could not touch them. So my point is, it was a very hard initiation for me, as it was. And, you should periodically, when you have someone, or myself, Susan does healings and calibration, someone, every couple of weeks, because with the influx of all of this energy, and as you work with other people and as you partake, it is a gift for you to allow yourself to, receive calibration, alignment, and just clearing for yourself, Never mind that sometimes we have an experience like that where we should really, reach out to.
I felt like it was just something I needed to just go through.
Well, you do. Like I said, I went through it too, but it truly helps me to have a shaman work with me through the initiation. So it's almost like saying, well, look, you're in labor, just have your kid, you know what, I'll be back later. Or having a doctor come and a nurse and saying, okay, I'm going to help you. You still have to go through the labor pains, but they'll soothe you, they'll help you breathe, right? And they'll help you get through the process in an easier way. That's why healers are healers, or shamans, or whatever we want to call ourselves, is to help you get through a process. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Would attunements or cutting cords be helpful in that incident?
In her incident?
I was doing that I was
Not
visualizing.
attunements, healings, not an
Yeah.
attunement.
Cutting cords.
Cutting cords.
I was visualizing cords being cut.
Oh, you are, okay.
That's really because I think that I would probably benefit from anyway getting a sort of a summarizing healing.
Well, like I said, what happens sometimes is that we start tapping into our own energy, right? And so suddenly we step into, I'm just gonna share it if that's okay, because
That's
I know
fine.
that you just stepped in, you came out in the expo,
Mhm.
that we just had. Congratulations, I was really proud of you.
Thanks.
But what happens is that we now suddenly race through, right? You raise your awareness, and now you're tapping suddenly into those places. And there's an acceleration that happens because suddenly you step down, now you're meeting people, now you're working with
and
people,
then
right?
It was TM I
Right.
was taking before, like a few weeks before that, and then just all of that stuff, right? And then
Well, what
I
I'm
got to
saying,
the
right.
expo, and then
What I'm saying is there something wrong with that? No. However, perhaps because you stepped out and suddenly, you know what I mean?
everything was happening the way I saw it was supposed to.
Started working with people and everything.
Yeah.
It created some imbalances and openings all at once that now needed to be addressed.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we can't raise ourselves without finding, we're gonna find something as we go up that opening.
And there was one person, actually before I saw you, that really drained me too, you know, like it was so there's a lot of things, yeah.
And there it is.
It
There
was wild, but it was wild.
So my advice is always gonna be, and again, whoever if you love yourself and you wanna be of service and you wanna be optimal every couple of weeks or whatever, you owe it to yourself, just like a car. You know what? You want your car to run well, right? I use that analogy a lot. Don't wait until the red light comes up to take the car in for maintenance. You know what? You rotate your tires, you check your oil. Why do you do these things? Because you don't want your car to get stranded somewhere. Well, we do that with our cars and whatever, but we don't do it with ourselves. If you're a light worker, and even if you're not a light worker, you should periodically get a tune-up. Of course, you owe it to yourself, yes?
Could have gotten also Reiki healing.
Hmm?
Reiki also.
Well, that is,
Yeah.
a Reiki healing or, an activation, a calibration, balancing. All these words are really synonymous to some degree or another, so.